Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Strange World Above the Clouds, designed by Florian Grenier and published by Grrre Games and distributed in the US by Hachette. This is a closed drafting card game with a spatial puzzle tile laying type aspect where you're drafting different types of cards to build out this sort of dream-like strange world above the clouds, trying to place out the cards to sort of score the different types of cards in different ways while avoiding placements that sort of turn your islands or your floating world into these world-eating monsters along the way. Disclaimer, I was given a review copy of this game for this video, but as always, I will do my best to give you my own honest opinion. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode in this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of Strange World Above the Clouds, begin first by taking the 4 starting lands cards, shown here by a blank back like that, giving them a good shuffle, and then drawing one at random as your starting land for your strange world. You're then going to take the rest of the land cards with the World Eater on the back of them like this, taking only the cards that are marked 1+ in the bottom left corner, giving those a good shuffle. And then I'm going to take those cards, deal out 7 piles of 3 cards, 2 face down and then 1 on top face up, as sort of drafting piles for the game. Then finally, to complete setup, we're going to be taking this stack of funeral cards. Are all exactly the same, just setting those here on the play area. The Dark City cards, starting with the highest valued card at the top, moving down in a stack as well. And then finally, the Traveler cards. These don't need to be in any kind of order or stack or anything else, just collecting them all together. Those will be something I have access to. I can scan through as needed when that comes up. And again, this card here is my starting land. It's going to be sort of floating around, and you'll see when we get into gameplay, I'm going to be building a grid of 4x4, so I need to make sure there's space in my play area for a 4x4 grid of cards. And the last thing there is for this game is this really nice player aid, which I will be using right now to explain how the game works. But first, Strange World Above the Clouds is going to play out over a series of 5 rounds. And in each of those rounds, I'm going to choose one of these 7 piles of cards to place out into my player area, my tableau. And to do that, I'm just going to draw the cards and play them. But again, I can only see the top card of each of these piles. The other 2 are face down. So I never know exactly what it is that I'm drafting, but I do have some idea of what could potentially, well, partially what is in that pile. And I'm going to be adding them into my tableau, trying to build things out so that I ultimately score the most points at the end of the game. So let me walk you through how the points work, and then also some extra additional sort of placement rules that you'll need to know about how I'm going to be placing these cards out into my 4x4 grid. So here we go, first starting with the scoring tile or scoring sort of possibilities. Each of these is a different either type of card or type of thing from a card that's going to score. The gray cards, which are simply mountains like you see here, are going to be scoring me 1 point per gray symbol on the cards that are connected together in my largest sort of contiguous section of gray symbols. The blue symbols are going to score 1 point for every card that is orthogonally adjacent to that blue card, except if it is a World Eater, and I'll explain how that happens in a minute, those will score 0 points. These sort of golden wheat field kind of cards like these right here will be scoring a flat 3 points for each of those symbols I have in my tableau. The green ones are going to be sort of wildlife. These are the different animals that I'm going to be collecting. And rather than scoring for the green symbols, you can see that each of those green symbols has a picture of one of the animals that's on the board. And I'm only scoring for unique animals. So I will be scoring 2 points for each unique animal that I have in my area. Then these weird sort of moon guys are going to score points based on the cards that are below them. So I'm going to look at the card directly below that moon card. And whatever symbols are on that card are going to score 2 points each for every card in that column, those symbols that are sort of represented on the cards in that column. So for example, if there are 2 colors on the card immediately below the moon, let's say green and blue, for example, all green and blue symbols in that column will score 2 points each. Next, we've got these dark city cards, and they're going to simply score the point value as printed, and I'll explain where they come from in just a minute, as well as we will be scoring these traveler cards. Each of these will give a flat 5 points, and then we'll score additional points if their condition is fulfilled. And I'll explain that in just a second as well. Because now we need to talk about placement. So when I draft cards, I'm allowed to place them out wherever I'd like to in my tableau, but there are a variety of different rules as shown here on the other side of the card. First, some of the cards, like this one right here, have these purple floating portals on them, or at least half of purple floating portals. Anytime I'm able to connect this half portal to another half portal next to it, I will be allowed to invite a traveler into my world. And the travelers are actually going to slot in sort of 2 rows like this. So it's pointing to this row and this row. And they have to be attached to the row where you placed the portal, either above or below that row. And at the end of the game, they're going to check all of the cards in those 2 rows to see if they fulfill that condition to score the additional points printed on there. It's worth mentioning that as soon as you add a traveler, though, that builds a hard edge into your tableau, and from that point on, you can only build away from that traveler because the traveler must always be on the edge of your world. So looking at those quickly, just so you understand the difference. Scoring. This one's looking for at least 5 mountains in those 2 rows to score 6 additional points. This one's looking for exactly 2 of those sort of swampland, marshland cards to score 4 additional points. This one's looking for 3 or more of the fumarole cards to score 5 points. Here is 4 or more different, unique animals to score 4 additional points. Here are 3 volcano cards to score 6 points. This one's looking for 2 or more of each green, blue, gray, and gold to score 8 additional points. This one's looking for 2 or more portals in the same row to score 8 points. And as far as I can tell, 2 is going to be the max, and you'll see why shortly. And this one, 3 or more water cards to score 5 additional points. So those are one way that we're going to score extra sort of bonus points based on how we lay things out in our area. Next, specifically for water and this sort of marshlands, there are some serious placement restrictions. Water cards can never be placed adjacent to another water card. If you place a water card adjacent to another water card, it will instantly flip over and become a world eater, which is basically effectively making that card score nothing. Same thing with these marshlands. You can only ever have 1 marshland in a row, which is why that card was looking for exactly 2 of them, because no more than 2 could fit into 2 rows. And if you place a second marshland in a row at any point, again, it flips over to become a world eater. Next, the moon cards always need to be at the top of the tableau area. If you ever place a card above that moon card, it will instantly flip over to become a world eater. And likewise, if you ever place a moon card underneath another card, it will also flip over and become a world eater. So I need to be careful that I'm never touching blue cards. I'm never placing more than one of these sort of golden cards in a row, and that those black moon cards are always at the top of their columns. But otherwise, I can sort of flexibly move this around or build off it in different directions, so long as I haven't added traveler, in which case that sort of edge becomes a hard edge and nothing else can happen. The last thing I do need to explain is this fumarole and dark city cards. You'll see that some of the cards have volcanoes on them. When I play a volcano card, I must place one of these fumaroles on a card adjacent to that volcano. And that card could include world eaters. I could cover a world eater with one of these fumaroles. And if I do place a fumarole in 2 adjacent, either horizontally or vertically connected locations, that sort of intersection will get a dark city placed on it. And each one will be successively slightly lower in points, but those are going to be a big way to score points if I can use those volcanoes. But remember, anything I cover with the fumarole is no longer scoring its original points. It's simply working towards getting these dark cities. So any single ones of these really aren't going to help, except that it could potentially cover a World Eater to allow the blue card to score off an adjacent location again. So that's basically all there is to it. Let's go ahead and get into gameplay and we'll see how things play out. And I think I want to start by, I see lots of that marshland stuff. There's 4 of them here, which could be the 4 rows. The dangerous part is there might be more underneath. And if I get one accidentally after I've intentionally drawn 4 of them, that's going to instantly become a World Eater that's going to be useless unless I burn it up with a volcano. But I am going to start with this one. And that's because it's also got a portal which will potentially allow me to score lots of stuff. So I'm going to take that card and we're going to flip all 3 of them over, and now I get to place those 3. Now, see already we've got 2 of those in the same place, which means I need to be careful. And I can't put a blue directly adjacent to another blue, but this actually gives me a unique opportunity because this may end up being a column. If I put this blue at the bottom, and then I put this one on top of that, and then I put this one on top of that, and then I put this one on top of that. That means then, let me slide this up just a bit. That means then that this one is scoring points for both blue and gold. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8 points right away from placing out that column, which is not a bad way to start. It does mean though that I only have space for 2 more of those marshlands without losing points for doing so. But it also means I'm starting a portal here. So if I can find another portal card to put here, I may be able to score some nice points off of that. We also don't know that this is anywhere near the middle. This could end up being the complete left or right edge if I decide to build off that way. Which means I'm somewhat scared about these 3 golden ones, because if I get any more than 2 golds, I'm in trouble. So let's take a look at green. Remembering that one of the highest scoring travelers, is this one that gets me for 2 green, 2 blue, 2 gray, and 2 yellow. And looking here, because there's my portal, I've already got 2 yellow and a blue. So if I can get 2 green, a blue, and 2 gray in those rows, that would be great. And I could potentially do that by taking this one here, which is already a double green. So let's do that. Ooh, and this is looking great because there's my other blue, there's 2 green, and there's a gray. So all I need is a gray, and there is a portal there. So if I do that, and I connect this gray here, like that. Sorry, one more thing I should mention, and it's not, it is on here. Sorry, I missed it. If a single card would ever have 2 full portals on it, so as soon as I place the second card that would complete another portal on the same card, that will become a World Eater. You can never have one card forming 2 portals. So I couldn't put a portal here, and I couldn't put a portal here because that would cause that card to flip over. But looking back at what I'm doing, I'm going to put this over here like that. Because now I have 2 green, I have 2 blue, I have 2 gold, I have 1 gray. And gray wants to be connected together. So I don't want to put gray over here where there's other stuff. Now I've got all this space over here to potentially grow into gray. And creating that portal, I am definitely going to take this one because all I need is a single gray and I will have completed that. So let's connect this here. Maybe? Yeah, I think so. Like that. Yes. That means this is dead. That means the gray has to be in one of these 3 spots. I could take this because I see gray, but that's got a gold and I can't put it there and I can't put it there. So that would have to go down here, which would allow for a spread of gray, which is great. So I think I'm going to take that anyway. Let's see what we get. Ooh, that's brilliant. Okay. Because then I can put this gray here. And I can put this one here. And then I might as well place this guy up here. Because he's scoring 2 points per gray, and that's already 4 gray in that column. So that's great. And now this is completed, because there's 2 gray, 2 green, 2 blue, and 2 gold. I'm good. The problem is the rest of this stuff is really scary, because I can only hold 1 more gold. So I am going to take this one, because it's an additional animal that I don't have yet. Ooh, that's a lot of volcano that I don't like, though. Lots of volcano that I don't like. But that is going to become a fumarole. I got to decide what to burn. This is an animal, this is an animal, but this is an animal plus 3 points. This is an animal plus nothing. But where do I want to burn? No, actually, the only way... This is going to have to burn unless I burn something that's already out, and I don't want to burn anything that's already out. So I want this one to survive because this is an edge. It means the blue on this edge is only going to touch 3 things at most. But this green is only scoring 2 unless I place it under something that scores more. So that blue actually is better, but only if I place it in the middle of something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this here, and then I'm going to place this here, burning this top card like that, and then I will place this here, burning this card like that. Which means I do get to place this Dark City, and you'll see the Dark City are double-sided because they can be placed vertically like this or horizontally. So you'll see that this way it lines up with the horizontal card, and this way it lines up visually with the vertical card like that. So we are going to place that here like that. Dark City just emerged in our burned wasteland. And I've got 1 more deck to choose from. And having done that, I don't mind this, but I don't want to burn anything. So I am going to take one of these moon cards, which means it's going to go here, so I really hope I get another green for right there. And I also hope I get no blues, because blue here and blue here would destroy everything. That's dangerous. That's super dangerous. Let's go here and see what happens. We got a moon guy, no blue, and gray. All right, well, something's getting burned up. That scores 2 points if I connect it to gray. But this volcano doesn't help me. It's going to destroy something. So I have to pay attention to what it's destroying so it doesn't destroy something useful. In any case, I have to put that there, because that's going to score me 4 points, and if I don't put that there, it's going to become a World Eater. This scores me 2 points, but destroys something, which if I destroyed that would be 3 points. If I destroyed that would be 3 points. So gaining 2 to get rid of 3 is not worth it. This would be 1 here. But hold on. This is going to destroy something. And the only things it can destroy are this, which is 4 plus 5, 6. That's too much to destroy. This is 3 points, this is 3 points, and this is 3 points. So in that case, I might as well put this here, because anything in this corner is not scoring, because this is gray and there's no gray over here. So I have to do that. And then I have to decide either this one or this one to destroy. It's going to be this one. And it does look like I should be able to put another Dark City in here, but no fumarole card can ever support more than 1 Dark City. So that is the end of our game, and we go into final scoring. So for scoring, the game does come with this very handy score sheet, so we'll go ahead and use that. Starting with the Gray Mountains, finding our largest zone, which is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points for the mountains. Like that. Next is the blue. Remembering the blue are going to score, the water lands are going to score based on the number of cards orthogonally adjacent to it, all cards except for World Eaters, which we were lucky and didn't end up with any of this time, means 1, 2, 3, 4. Then for this one, 5, 6, 7. Then for this one, 8, 9, 10 points for my blue lands. The Golden Marshes are scoring 3 points each, and I've got 3 of those for 9 points. Green scores based on unique animals. I do only have 3 of them, but those 3 are all unique. 2 points each is 6 points. Next, we're looking at these moons up here. He's scoring 2 per gray, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8. Plus, he's scoring for blue and gold, 10, 12, 14, 16. And he's scoring 2 per green. I only have 2 of them, so 18, 20 total points for those guys. Next is the Dark Cities. I've got 1, which is worth 9 points. And finally, the Travelers are worth a flat 5, plus if we've accomplished their goals, which I did, 2 gray, 2 blue, 2 green, and 2 of the gold, means I get an additional 8, so 5 and 8 is 13 points. Adding everything up together, 6 plus 10 plus 9 plus 6 plus 20 plus 9 plus 13 gives me a total score of 73 points. That is the most I've ever scored. I'm very happy that you got to see me do that, because generally I score in the high sort of 60 range. Then for the solo mode, there is a scoring threshold, as this is a beat your own score solo mode. Taking a look at that with a score of 73, still not enough to get up 1 more level to 75. It says, that's not bad at all. The World Eaters are calm and tolerate you. That's great. Before, I'd only ever gotten below the 69, so I'm very happy to have jumped up a level on camera to show you that. That's basically all there is to show you. Everything you've seen already on screen. I love the way that this looks. The artwork in this game is beautiful. I love the way that all of these cards fit together. The clouds extend across all of the cards. You can see even the brown cloud connects to the card below it. And that was great that they even went so far as to making these Dark City cards double-sided so that they can fit the same picture tableau either horizontally or vertically, matching the picture on the tableau, making it all flow together as one single world. It just looks really, really cool. Super poppy colors, super cartoony artwork, but in this kind of eerily cute kind of way, which is really, really fun to see. That World Eater, oops, that's not the back of, there we go. That World Eater design is super cool. Again, super creepy, but super cute at the same time. I just love the theme that's oozing out of here. All of the different travelers have a very cool, unique look to them. Just love the art design of this game. Really, really, really great visually. The cards themselves do not have a linen finish, but they are nice quality cards. They're just very, very glossy cards. Having this score sheet, completely unnecessary, but really, really nice to have. I love it. It really does help you remember all of the different things you need to score. This player aid is wonderful. It's all symbolic, which is great because you could play this with anybody who speaks any language. Whoops. Give this to them, explain the game once, and everything is super clearly laid out, completely in iconography, which is wonderful. Very, very well done. The only other card that you haven't seen is this sun card, which is also very cute. But this is going to be the first player marker in a multiplayer game, but it also will dictate for that game which direction you will be passing cards, because this is a sort of closed draft take and pass card game for a multiplayer game, which is what those sort of piles are sort of representing. In that, I'll talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts, because I have been playing this game with my son quite a bit. But that's basically all there is. The game itself just comes in a tiny little box like this. The cards all just fit in there super nicely. Again, there are lots more cards marked for different player counts. 1+, 2+, 3+, and 4+. So the more players you play with, obviously the more cards you're going to need, because you will be making a larger tableau. But that's basically it. Everything fits in this box. Lid slides on real nice, and it's just a tiny little card box Really, 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 really nice design from all angles as far as I'm concerned. That's basically it for the components. Maybe back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. All I can say here is wow, 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 wow. This is a game that was flew under my radar completely. I had never even heard of this game. I got an email from Hachette asking if I was interested in covering any of these games. I saw small box card game, spatial puzzler, can be played solo, beautiful artwork. I thought, hey, let's give this a shot. And then I sort of forgot about it. And then a couple months later, it showed up in the mail. And I looked at it and said, this looks interesting. But yeah, it's a small box spatial puzzler, drafting card game. I'm excited to try it out, but I didn't really have much to think taking it out and playing it on the table. And I have to say, this game has gotten more play over the last couple of weeks than pretty much any other game that I've got. This is a game that I've been playing solo specifically for this review, but my 6-year-old son instantly was attracted to this game, saw me playing it, said, hey, what's that? We sat down to play it 2-player, and he is now obsessed with this game. This game, I promise you, every night after dinner, he asks if he can play this game. We've been sort of squeezed in between bedtime with not enough time to play, and he breaks down into tears saying, I just want to play one game of Strange World Above the Clouds. And we've sort of used it as a way to sort of reinforce him getting ready for bed early so that he can play this game. He is absolutely loving this game. I've played this now at solo, 2-player, and then 3-player as well with a friend of my son's. And this game continues to be fun for everybody I've played it with, and I'm actually planning on using it in my board game after-school class this week in order to show off closed drafting mechanisms to my students. So I suspect it's going to go very well at 4 players as well, but I'm excited to give it a shot. But enough gushing about this game. Let's get into what this game is. At its heart, it's a closed drafting game, which means that every player is given a hand of cards. You're going to take and pass and take and pass. And I'm going to sort of leave it vague right now about that because one of the unique things that I really do enjoy about this game is sort of the small twists, the small tweaks that it does on a closed drafting system. And that's going to work slightly differently in multiplayer and solo. Now, granted, this is a solo channel, and I'm going to focus on the solo game here for this review, but as I said, I've played this so much with my son now and with his friend as well that I also want to talk about the multiplayer game a little bit just because I am talking about the game, and the drafting system here is unique in a very fun and interesting way. So I do want to point that out. So basically, I'm going to set the drafting aspect aside for a minute and instead focus on the rest of the game first, and then I'll come back to the draft of both multiplayer and solo. So basically, every round in this game, you are drafting 3 cards. And I'll talk again about the draft in a minute. Starting the game with a single card, with a single island of a single type in your sort of player area. And your player area is going to ultimately grow to a 4x4 grid of cards, which will trigger the end of the game. And again, every round you are playing 3 cards. You're drafting and laying down 3 cards into that grid, ultimately building 4x4, which means you start with 1, so there are 15 cards you're ultimately placing out, so there will be 5 rounds to every game of this, or every play of this game. And you're drafting a variety of different cards. First, basically building this strange world above the clouds, you're sort of placing out these sort of floating islands of different types. And the different types, broadly, I don't know what the actual words for them are, but there's sort of water features, there are nature areas that contain animals, there are volcanoes, there are sort of just standard gray mountains, and there are these sort of golden yellowy colored swamp marshland kind of areas. So these are the 5 main types of things that you're going to be placing out. And each of these scores and places in a slightly different way. So the gray mountains are going to be a sort of set collection aspect or area building aspect of the game. So at the end of the game, you're going to be scoring 1 point per mountain. And I say per mountain, not per card, because some of the cards contain 2 of them. 1 point per mountain in your largest cluster of adjacent mountains. So basically, you're trying to build out the largest area of these gray mountains as possible as you're filling in your tableau or your grid. And the interesting thing here is because you're starting with a single card and building off that, every time you place out a card, it has to be placed adjacent to a card that's already there. But there's no edge to the grid until the time when you've got 4 cards across in any sort of row or 4 cards tall in any combination of columns, that will then set that sort of edges in that direction. So again, the mountains you're scoring based on clusters of mountains. Then the green sort of nature animal cards, you're scoring based on the number of unique animals you have in your grid at the end of the game. And some of the cards will have 1 and some of the cards will have 2 animals, but there are some crossover. So if you play multiple cards with the same animal, ultimately you're not scoring any points for that. So you have to do your best to efficiently maximize the number of different animals, but they don't need to be connected in any kind of way. They can sort of be placed anywhere you'd like to in the grid. Blue and gold are scoring a little bit simpler or differently, but they also have unique placement restrictions. The blue cards, the water sort of feature cards, can never be placed adjacent to another water feature card. And if they are, the card that you're placing second that would be adjacent to one that's already existing is going to flip face down. And face down on the back of every card, as you can see right here behind me, is a world-eating monster. And a world-eating monster basically just means that card is useless and won't score anything for you. So you're trying your best to avoid doing that as you're playing out your cards. But the water features are going to score based on the number of non-world-eating monster cards that are adjacent orthogonally to that card. So anywhere from 2 if you place the card in a corner, to 3 on an edge, or 4 if you manage to surround the card in the center of your grid. That is how the water features score. The golden sort of marshy swampland cards are simply going to score a flat 3 points for every one of them that you have, except the restriction is you can only have one of them per row in your grid. So if at any point you add a second one of them into a single row, that card again will flip over and become a world-eating monster scoring nothing for you. So you have to think about how you're placing these cards out, because the grays like to be connected, the greens don't really care, but the blues can't be adjacent to each other, the golden ones can't be in the same row as each other, and then you've got the volcanoes. And the volcanoes are a bit of an annoying card. The volcanoes are generally, I think maybe always, paired with another color on the same card. So you might have an animal in a volcano, you might have a mountain in a volcano, etc. But when you play a volcano card, you then immediately have to burn one of the cards that's orthogonally adjacent to that card that's being played. And by burn, I mean you put one of these sort of burned up fumarole cards on top of the card that you've got already, effectively removing that card, which could be just as bad as having a world-eating monster, because that card now is a nothing card. Except that you can also burn world-eating monster cards. So if you already had a card that's flipped over, you kind of want to put a volcano next to it and burn it away. Why? Because a burned card will still score for adjacency next to a blue water feature card. But more importantly, the reason these volcanoes are not just completely useless cards is if you can ever manage to get 2 of these burn cards adjacent to each other, either in the same row or in the same column, you'll then place, right here you can see behind me, one of these Dark City cards on top. And the Dark City cards are just going to be a flat point scoring card that will give you a set number of points. And the sooner you get them, the more points they're worth, because each successive card is worth a little bit fewer points for placing into your grid. So you're trying to get, if something is going to burn, you're trying to get 2 of them to burn at the same time or similar time early in the game so that you can get one of these city cards, these Dark City cards that are going to score more points for you. So those are the main normal cards that you can score, but there are also a couple of other things that come out in the game. And those are, some of the normal cards will also have on either side of that card, both sides, half of what is called a portal. And if you can manage to put 2 cards together that sort of have a half a portal on them, connected together, therefore making a full portal, a traveler is going to come and visit your realm, your strange world. And these travelers are going to score you a flat 5 points for coming to visit you, but then also will give you additional scoring based on some kind of set collection goal that they're specifically looking for. You might have a traveler that likes animals. You might have a traveler that likes water features. You might have a traveler that's looking for a variety of stuff, so 2 of each different type of land. You might have a traveler who's excited about portals, so they're looking for multiple portals. And the way the travelers work is, when you place those 2 cards to make a portal, you then summon the traveler into 2 rows, one of which has to be the row where you just placed the portal. So it can be the one below it or the one above it and the one that you've just built. And that Traveler is looking for that set collection goal within those 2 rows. So you're trying to put specific cards then in those rows to satisfy that goal, that scoring goal of that Traveler. So they will score flat 5 points automatically, plus an additional 4 to 8 points depending on the goal and how difficult it is to achieve for that Traveler. The other thing the Traveler does, though, is it adds the wall to your grid. So even if you don't have 4 cards across, as soon as you add a Traveler to one side of your grid, you can no longer build in that direction because that is the edge of your world. You then have to make sure you're building away from that Traveler. So getting Travelers early might be tricky because you don't know what's going to go into that row. So you don't know which Traveler to choose because you get to choose which one visits you. You don't necessarily know which goals you're aiming for early game because you don't really know what cards are going to come out in the draft. And plus the Traveler is going to block a wall, sort of preventing you from building or from growing in a single direction. So early game it's tricky, but remember there's only one of each kind of Traveler. So in a multiplayer game especially, if you don't draft a Traveler that's a high-scoring Traveler, because I said it ranges from 4 to 8 points for those goals, somebody else might get there before you, and then even if you can build out the things that would have scored those big points, that Traveler's not there anymore to score for you. So there is a bit of a timing thing as well as to when you turn on these portals to bring in the Travelers and which Travelers you're bringing in, and then how you focus on fulfilling the goals of that Traveler to get the extra points for them. The other kind of interesting scoring goal cards that are like this are these moon cards. So there are also cards that don't have any lands on them at all. It's just a single creepy looking moon with these 2 black eyes on it. And those moons want to be placed at the top of the board. Pause for a second. Going back to the Travelers for a minute. The portals, another way you can create these world-eating monsters. If a card ever has a portal on both sides of it, means both of the portals on a single card are used, the second card that adds the second portal becomes a world-eating monster. Anyway, back to these moons. The moons want to be placed at the top of columns. And the moons are looking at the icons or these sort of land types on the card directly below it. And whatever land types are on that card directly below the moon card, it's going to score 2 points for each of those land types on any card in that column. So if you could place that moon on top of a card that has 2 different types of features, then you have more flexibility about what's in that column. And you kind of want to place as many double features under there as possible to maximize the number of points that you're getting from that moon. But now you got to be extra careful because if that card below that moon becomes a world-eating monster or gets burned by a volcano, then that card has no tags on it at all and that moon is going to score nothing. Likewise, if another card is ever placed above a moon, or even in a different column, if it's in a higher row than the moon, that moon becomes a world-eating monster. And if you're ever forced by the sort of order of drafting to place a moon into a space that is not the topmost space in a column, again, that moon becomes a world-eating monster. So there are lots of different ways that you can accidentally have cards sort of erased from your grid, turning into a world-eating monster, preventing you from scoring. You can sort of come back a little bit from that by burning them with volcanoes. One of those Travelers that's coming is scoring based on burned cards in the 2 rows that it's attached to. So that's not necessarily a game-ending thing that happens, but it's something you're constantly planning about. Because, remember, ultimately this game is a drafting game. And drafting means you don't always know the cards that you're going to be getting. So you kind of always have to leave a hole open in the top row to make sure that if you get a moon, you've got a place to put it. You kind of always want to make sure that you've got a place that's not adjacent to a blue card, so if you get a blue card, you got a place to put it. Likewise, you kind of always want to make sure you have one opening in any row that doesn't have a gold card, a marsh card, so that you can put it in that row should you get one. And this is going to get more and more and more difficult as the game plays out because you can build out these grids, but as they're building out, there are fewer and fewer spaces to build into that are safe from these sort of placement restrictions. And it's becoming more and more likely that you might get a random card that's just going to turn into a world-eating monster. So let's get back into the draft because the drafting here is important and the drafting here is very unique to me. Let's start multiplayer. We'll come back to the solo because the solo is sort of where I want to end up. In multiplayer, like most drafting card games, everybody in the game is dealt a number of cards. In this case, as I said, you're drafting 3 cards, so everybody is dealt 3 cards. But the way that the draft in this game works is you're going to keep 1 card of those 3 cards and pass 2 cards to the next person. Then you're going to get 2 cards from the previous person, or in the case of a 2-player game, the other person, and you're going to look at those cards, including the card that you just kept, and you're going to pass 1 card. So you're never removing a card. It's not like a normal draft where you're playing a card down and then passing your cards and then playing a card down and then passing your cards. You're keeping 1 card in your hand from your original 3 cards, passing the other 2 away, getting 2 cards back, and now again you're getting the opportunity to look at 3 cards and keep 2 of them, passing 1 around. So the cool thing about this is that the card you took the first time may not be a card that you keep. It may be the card you pass, depending on the 2 cards you get, because the 2 cards you get might work better together with themselves than one of them does with the card that you originally kept. So you've got sort of 2 opportunities to think about which cards you want, how those cards work together, and ultimately how those cards work with the cards that are already placed into your grid towards scoring points the best way that you can. And it works slightly differently in a 2-player game than it does in a 3 or 4-player game, because remember, in a 2-player game, you're passing 2 cards to the other person, who's passing 2 cards to you, and then again, you're passing 1 card to the same person who's passing 1 card to you. So if they give you something you don't like, you can throw it right back in their face, which makes for a very interesting dynamic in a 2-player game. And then in a 3 or 4-player game, granted you're passing to a different person than you're taking from, but that also means that you're not stuck with the cards that you get from the guy that's giving them to you, if that makes sense. So I'm getting 2 cards from the person to my right or left. This game lets you decide at the start of the game, whoever's first player determines the passing direction that you'll use for the entire game. But you're getting 2 cards from a person. And then from those, you're getting rid of 1 card and then getting 1 more card from that same person. So it does make for a slightly different style of drafting, because the cards that you're seeing aren't going to be the same cards coming around. And you're also not stuck with a decision you made early, then getting a random card and then realizing, hey, these cards don't work together at all. So I really enjoy the small tweak that this offers in drafting, particularly because, as I mentioned in later game, you're going to start getting cards that just don't work with your grid. And if you put them in the wrong place, not only don't they score for you, but they're going to turn into world-eating monsters and completely mess up the scoring of other cards that may already be on your grid as well. Really, really interesting use of drafting. Now let's talk about the solo mode. The solo mode here is a beat your own score solo mode. And there's no draft, obviously, because there's no way to take and pass when there is nobody to pass to. And you couldn't really automate an opponent to do that very well. So what happens in the solo mode is you're laying out 7 piles of cards, which you're only going to take 5 of, because there are only 5 rounds in the game. And each of those piles of cards is 2 cards down and 1 card up, which kind of simulates the same idea you get in the draft, because every pile of cards you're picking up is a card you know 1 of, which is basically that 1 card you keep in the normal draft of the multiplayer game. And the other 2 cards you get are random. Now, you don't get a second chance to sort of swap out those random cards as you would in the multiplayer game, but it still means you have knowledge of 1 card and no knowledge of the other 2 cards, except that you also have knowledge of 1 card of all of the other piles right from the beginning of the game. So if you can see lots of Swampy Marsh cards on top of those piles, then probably there's less of them on the face down cards. So you can kind of make some early game decisions based on the kinds of cards that you want and the kinds of cards that you don't want to have too many of in your grid. And then as you play out the game more and more, and you start drafting those piles, because every round you will take them and see all 3 cards and play all 3 cards, then the cards that you can see on top of those other piles mean different things in different ways based on what's been added to your grid before you then take that pile. So the order of the piles that you're taking has some decision space that's there because you can see 1 of the 3 cards in there, but there's also still that same sort of push your luck, dealing with random situations that comes out of the draft in the multiplayer game, in the solo game in this as well. So I really enjoy how the solo mode plays. It really, really does work quite a bit like the multiplayer game, even though the draft is not really the same closed draft system that's being used in the multiplayer game. It still brings in the same idea of I have a card that I know that I have, and the other two are random things that I have to make use of, planning ahead for the future to make sure I don't mess myself or back myself into a corner that I can't get out of, turning all of my cards into world-eating monsters. Really, really interesting draft that ties really, really interesting to a spatial puzzle where you're trying to efficiently place cards to score points based on the different types of cards, but then also build out your grid in a way that you don't back yourself into a corner that cards can't be placed and scored later in the game. Also then hoping that things slot into the right places, picking out travelers that score based on things that you hope that you can draft to put into rows, and or building portals late game that automatically score because of things that you've laid out earlier in the game. All of this works together to just make for a really fun game. Now, if there's anything I'll say about the game, the solo mode is a beat your own score. Yes, there are score thresholds, but I really would love to have a competition against a scoring AI. In this game, I'm not sure that's really possible, so I don't fault them in any way. This is just a preference thing of my own, but I love the way the game plays, so this is one that will absolutely continue to get played solo, and as I said, multiplayer, my son is begging and begging and begging and begging to play more and more and more of this game, which brings in my second possible slight negative in that this game does have sort of it's a small box, and it does have a sort of set amount of content in that box. And you're doing the same scoring every time. Now, granted, every time the starting island you're starting with is different, means a different color. The order that the cards come out in is going to be completely different. So the way that you plan to score those things and which scoring features you're focused on more each game is going to change. So I don't feel like it feels incredibly repetitive, but it is the kind of game that I would love at least a small expansion for, to throw in 1 or 2 or 3 different types of cards or different kinds of travelers, or one more small mechanism in there that twists things up just a little bit more. But it doesn't need it. It's a small box game, and that's sort of what it's there for. This is the kind of game that you can pull out whenever to play through. The game plays through in 15, 20 minutes, but it's a really fulfilling experience with lots of really cool decisions and strategies and tactical changes as you're playing that really makes that 15, 20 minutes feel like a bigger game. I'm really enjoying this. My son is really enjoying this. I should point out, my son is 6 years old. This box says 10 plus. This is not at all about bragging about my son, although he has been playing games since he was young, so he is maybe a little bit further ahead than a normal 6-year-old would be. But this 10 plus on the box is probably closer to an 8 plus if you have a son or a daughter, a child, a friend, whoever it is that is younger than the 10 plus. I'd still recommend giving this one a try. They may not necessarily be playing at a level that you are, but it's still a very fun game to play. It builds out a really cool picture on the table when you're done that makes even more interesting and more fun to play. Thematically, visually, this game is a whole lot of fun as well. I can't say enough good about this game. I'm really, really happy about this game. If you like card drafting, if you like spatial puzzles, absolutely check this one out. Big thumbs up from me. That's basically all I have to say about this one. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and as always, if it was, I do ask that you remember, please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.